right, and here we go, back with another episode of the Uncivilized Arts podcast, the gaming and geek and internet culture podcast. We talk movies, TV shows, games, geeky things, and every now and then I get somebody interesting. What's out? I have a
Oh,
few interesting
stop.
people on the
Oh, stop.
podcast, but every now and then I get somebody as cool as Ural Garrett. You know, I should back up. I should know how to pronounce it. It is Ural.
It's Ural.
Oral. Oh, damn it. My bad. I should know that by now. It's only been 25 years. I should know that by now. I'm sorry.
Hey, let me tell you, it's still people that I've known for 30 years. They still call me Ural, Urice. I was like, I didn't even know S in my name, but but it's
Right. As somebody who knows the struggles of their name getting mispronounced a lot,
Oh,
I should do better.
yeah.
I should do better.
Hey,
But
it's
yeah,
life. It's life. Add a little creative flair to it. It's all good.
I
It's all
appreciate
good.
coming through, bro. I appreciate you. But yeah, we have a special guest on today, and spoke to Ural Garrett 3 years ago. In fact, I believe maybe about 3 years to the month. Because I checked, it was actually June 2022 we last spoke. So 3 years to
Yeah.
the month,
Ooh,
possibly
a
even to the
lot
day.
has fired.
Possibly
Oh,
even
wow.
to the day. But yeah, it's been about 3 years since we last spoke. So a lot's happened in the last 3 years, including the most recent Summer Games Fest, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But before that, bruh, how you been? What you been doing? What a guan?
All right, so let me run it down. Stuff's fine, family good. I have an 8-year-old. I'm like, cheer dad stuff, regular dad stuff. Yesterday was Father's Day. Had a pretty decent Father's Day. Can't complain too much. But between now and the last time we spoke, I started working as the digital editor for Know Your Rights Camp, which is the abolitionist nonprofit started by our founder, Colin Kaepernick. As in America, he caused some controversy by
Just a little bit.
taking a knee, a little bit, taking a knee in opposition to police brutality that was affecting Black and brown communities in the United States. So he started this nonprofit where he does camps for kids globally. He does camps for kids where he teaches them to write, gives them lets them know what their opportunities are in education and technology. Gets them involved in regards to like understanding, mental health as well as physical health. A lot of giveaways, breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided, free of charge. We have that. The camps, we also have what's called the Autopsy Initiative, where we provide free secondary autopsies to anyone who has been killed or murdered while in police custody or while in prison. We have that. We also have the Know Your Rights Camp app. The Know Your Rights Camp app on iOS and Google. What that provides kind of like a portal to Know Your Rights Camp, but also provides state by state laws in regards to protests, traffic stops, and immigration. And we added the immigration update in January. We have been working on this update probably about 6 months prior to the United States election, but to the presidential election last year. But we clearly fast-tracked some things with the new administration, because things have been getting kind of crazy around here. And with those immigration rights, we have that in both French and Spanish as well as and then I produce, outside of handling things like social media and external and internal communications, I help produce the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. So I'm behind the podcast mics, where we pretty much talk about various issues that are affecting Black and brown communities nationwide. Whether that's how a certain administration getting rid of, leaving the World Health Organization, how does that affect Black and brown communities? How does Medicare and Medicaid, cuts affect that? How does things like, early January, we had the big fires in California. A lot of people don't know that a lot of the firefighters were incarcerated firefighters that were only getting paid around like less than $1 an hour to fight those fires. So we talk to people who are kind of fighting to raise the pay for that. So that's Know Your Right camp side of my life. Then I host a radio show every Saturday at 4 p.m. PST on KBLA 1580 AM, which is the only Black-owned talk radio station west of the Mississippi. I think it's about 3 in the nation for Black-owned talk radio stations. So I have a show called The Lyric Lounge with Passion Tilly. Well, we discuss music lyrics, music, various subjects, various topics. So it's listenable on KBLA 1580, but if you are not in the radio wave area, we also have the KBLA app, which is really popular. And then if you can't get to that, we upload each episode probably around Monday and Tuesday on various podcast feeds. So we've had some cool guests, we've had some cool topics that we've talked about, so I enjoy that. And then me on the gaming journalism side, still writing for outlets like Tech Radar, Shannon Underscore. I've covered Summer's Game Fest. A couple of my features was dropped today, including one with IO Interactive's chief technology officer about the Glacier engine that powers Hitman, as well as the upcoming 007 First Light game. And I did another one that posted today was my hands-on with Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which is really fun, really cool alternative, cheaper alternative than Mario Kart World, because I do not have $80 about it. I got to be responsible.
Oh yeah, cost of games going up. We're gonna have to talk about that as well.
Oh yeah. So that's pretty much some other projects that I can't talk about. Working on my first game, Chex Adventure. So You'll be one of the first people to just try it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I just threw that on you.
I'm up for that.
Yeah. That's pretty much what's been happening. Happening in my life.
That's awesome. So, but basically, like everything, just to
that's when it's expensive in California. It's expensive. And then a child is a luxury item at this point.
Actually, speaking of that, real quick, actually, I've got to apologize to you. Because I listened to the last time we spoke, and I accidentally cut you off at one point. I feel like maybe towards the end of the podcast, I actually cut you off. I didn't mean to, but it's kind of listening back at it, and it sounded like you was about to talk about that fatherhood as well, and I ended up interrupting you without realizing. So yeah, sorry for that. I was. That's
an early one. The earlier ones, it's
yeah.
You're just getting through the phases. I know you're a pro at this point, so it's all good.
But but it's an interesting thing though, because like you say, you do a lot. Expensive out in Cali. You gotta pay them bills. You gotta work. Yeah. You gotta take care of your kids. You gotta take care of your family. Take care of yourself, of course. You gotta do all these things. While doing all these things, how is that like balancing all of that with like family life and fatherhood and that whole thing?
I just make it work. I make it work, and I have a really wild Google Calendar. Sleep, weed, I just try to keep things in balance as much as I can. It's a hard job. Sometimes I fail at that, but I think I do more. I think I do good more than I fail though. So as long as I can keep that ratio.
Indeed. I think that's. I mean, I ain't got kids, but it's like even for myself, it could feel like just with work and life and just all the stuff you're gonna take care of, and like people need you for this and that, and even that sometimes for me it kind of feels like, man, I'm stretched thin. So like, I could just imagine like with kids it's just that much tougher. But yeah, like you say, you just gotta keep figuring it out as you go along.
I know it's a lot. It can be a lot sometimes, but I can make it work. I got a good therapist. I also picked up some hobbies. Started playing a lot of tennis actually. So I have 2
okay,
coaches.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that.
You did that for?
About 6 months. Yeah, about 6 months. So I do that. And then, as a lover of VR, I have a Supernatural membership as well. So I do Supernatural like 3 or 4 times a week as well, which is a fitness app. Supernatural, the fitness app. It's really awesome.
Oh right. Okay. I think that's Supernatural. Like, what are we talking about?
It's a fitness app. It's really cool.
I get it. Yeah.
I do that, and then I got to play tennis. Probably when I get off of this, I'm probably gonna head to the courts, hit some balls. So it's a balance, but I try to do my best.
Yeah, I found one of the hobbies I've taken up in recent times is gardening.
Oh, nice.
Which is mad because
Nice.
like it's something that I never really gave any real thought to, like ever. You know, like literally ever. Like I grew up as a kid, we had a garden, never really done nothing with it, you know. So it's kind of like just in recent times to be like, okay, you know, we've got this garden, you know, weeds are overgrown, you know, someone's going to take care of it.
Oh,
It's just kind of started like that. Someone's going to take care of it. It's like, all right, cool, I'll do it. And then from
okay.
there, you know, just started learning more about like composting and how to make fertilizer, and you know,
Oh,
started growing
wow.
vegetables and you know, stuff like that. And yeah, it's
So
been an interesting journey.
when the apocalypse happens, you are ready.
I mean, sorry, growing tomatoes, but growing potatoes at the moment, which are almost ready to harvest.
Oh,
And maybe another few weeks or so. And because what I read is that you have to wait till the leaves start turning yellow, which they have done. But you have only the bottom leaves to turn yellow. You have to wait till the top leaves start to turn yellow. That way, it's like you know that all the nutrients are kind of going towards the potatoes, and then you cut off the stem and then you leave it for a little bit longer, about a week or
oh,
so,
wow.
and then you take them out and you got potatoes. So yeah,
Oh, that's lit.
I mean, I think these took 3 months. I think from when they're planted, 3 or 4 months. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
give me 3 or 4 months and I can make potatoes. You
Oh,
know what I
that's
mean?
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you're definitely surviving the apocalypse. That's pretty.
Might need those skills now, actually, the way things are going. But like you said,
Yeah,
it's a bit
crazy
mad.
enough.
It's a bit
At
mad
Tech
right
Radar,
now.
my editor at Tech Radar, Rob, he was a garden architect before transitioning over to gaming journalism.
The garden. Oh, okay, like the building, like the spaces and that, like
Yeah,
designing them. And wow, that's
yeah. I think he wrote a book about. I think he's working on a book about like gardening in gaming, like
all right.
garden.
That
Yeah,
stuff like what's that game I'm thinking of? Plants versus Zombies and stuff like that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, oof, I mean, the thing. Let's see, last few years, boy, you mentioned yeah, about sort of immigration stuff like that, and yeah, that's just been a crazy thing because like, I mean, the last time I went to the USA, I think I want to say around 2008 or so, give or take. I went to New York
Okay.
and it was pretty cool. I remember going there and not having much issues with, you know, getting in and that kind of thing. You know, to take my passport and it was pretty straightforward. You know, apparently a lot's changed since then. You know,
Oh yeah.
and from what I'm hearing, like I would like to go back again, but I'm kind of like I'm hearing people who live in America getting detained, and
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. It's a complicated thing. It is a complicated thing. Yeah. It's incredibly complicated. And it's a complicated issue made worse by an administration that is operating on vibes. Yeah. Yeah, that's operating on vibes. I mean, you know, I'll say this. The first Trump administration was hard,
yeah.
but this is like going from like Call of Duty from like veteran to like what's the one on top of veteran? Like the one that's like the difficulty that's like it's like
All right.
yeah, it's like the highest difficulty, right? Yeah, so during Summer's Game Fest, probably like the week before Summer's Game Fest, Trump decided to do a gang of ICE raids. So ICE is the pretty much like they're like the immigration police, pretty much. So I mean, they were doing wild stuff like luring kids, like using like graduations to lure kids out to go after the parents and stuff, or like, you know, going to like people's work, like employment, and like just picking them up and snatching them up. And this is in various industries, whether we're talking, you know, more administrative jobs, going all the way to people who work in agriculture, you know, migrant workers, agriculture, to hotels, to fast food restaurants, to construction. So, you know, they were targeting everybody from, you know, various Latino ethnicity groups, you know, Latinos, Hispanics, to, you know, Asians, to, you know, Caribbean folks, especially Haitians, you know, Black folks like Haitians, some African folks as well. I would say that you have that, and then you have the protest that happens during Summer's Game Fest, which was wild because now I'm like, normally when I bring two computers. I bring my work computer for Know Your Rights Camp and my computer to work on what's called, and they were both active. But the good thing is that, you know, I know a lot of people like to talk about, especially with the news. Let me just make this clear to you and your viewers. So what you saw during that week in LA in regards to the protests was literally one block. Was literally like one block. Now there was called the FDC, which is the Federal Detention Center, where they were kind of taking some of the people that were arrested. I would say that, you know, things got hectic. Now, who's to blame for things getting hectic? That's a whole nother conversation. I will say that Trump deploying the National Guard and some Marines could have made things potentially worse, which they kind of did get worse, but didn't get too out of control. But again, that was one block, and Los Angeles is a huge city. So what I would say that most of the protests during last weekend, not last weekend, but the weekend before last, they were relatively peaceful. It's not chaotic. It wasn't like crazy chaotic. It was mainly peaceful. It was mainly peaceful. People got their point across. Now, I would say that a lot of this, like I know last weekend, Trump had his birthday with the kind of, he tried to emulate North Korea, you know, Russia, you know, he failed because like nobody showed up. Even I think on Craigslist, they were like giving people $1,000 to show up and like nobody did. Yeah. And
Whoops.
the No Kings protest that happened, you know, in thousands of cities, you know, nationwide. But what I will say is that all of these protests that happened over the weekend that definitely could have been avoided in November if people actually would have voted. You know, we had a perfectly fine, you know, who was problematic. Let's not get it right. You know, Kamala, you know, was problematic, you know, but a whole lot better than Trump, for sure. But a whole lot better. I think a lot of it was, you know, they didn't want to vote. They didn't want to vote, you know, a woman who was a person of color in the highest, you know, nation. You know, I don't think the world was ready. The world was barely ready for Barack Obama, like barely. You know what I mean? Barely. Kamala, a whole nother beast. Yeah, a whole nother beast in the grand scheme of things. So, but the reality is she was still the best candidate. Like, even though I had my problems with her, I still, you know, gritted your teeth, you know, shut the fuck up, and I voted for her. Even if I didn't necessarily want. And I think a lot of people, and you know, again, I think part of it was, and then some people just sat out. But I think all of this could have been avoided because I'm like, you know, Trump's withdrawn from the CDC. You know, he pretty much got RFK to run, you know, stuff like the CDC. He got Linda McMahon running the Department of Education, and she thought she didn't even know what AI stood for. She didn't even know what AI stood for. Yeah, she didn't know what AI stood for. I think she thought AI meant A1.
Like the curriculum.
Yeah, she thought it meant A1. You know, we got wild folks. We got like an alcoholic Fox News correspondent running the military secretary of defense. You know, running the Defense Department. It's just really bad. It's really bad out here. I mean, prices are going crazy high. Inflation, the tariff war got crazy. And then, you know, the situation that's happening right now with Israel and Iran, you know, we all know, you know, we know that Trump has little prickly fingers into that too. So, you know, right now, you know, as a black man with a black family member, it's really just like, you know, keeping my head on the swivel, going to therapy, you know, making sure I keep some decent amount of weed on me, staying prepared for whatever might go down, taking care of myself when I can, you know, self-care is a must, getting some sleep because sleep rest is resistance.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Getting some sleep.
Sleep is important.
Yeah, sleeping. The body is made for sleep. Don't let all these people talking about no sleep. Nah, that's how you end up with like a crazy heart attack at fucking like 58. You just like, yeah, no, I sleep. Yeah, I sleep hard. Yeah, so stuff is wild. You know, stuff is wild. But I went to a couple protests and here in Inglewood, and they were relatively peaceful. There wasn't even any drama, any of that. So if people don't know, like, yeah, it isn't like, I know people are Trump is trying to paint it like it's like the riots in '92, which I was there because I grew up probably about half a mile to where the LA riots started. Like I grew up around there, and it's not even like an inch close to that. So
the 92, that's the Rodney King.
Rodney King. The Rodney King riots. Yeah. So I literally grew up like half a mile before it started off of
yeah. That's the thing I think with politics. I remember one of my friends told me once. He said that voting is like asking which gun you want to be shot with, and he told me something like that years ago, and I ain't gonna disagree with it because I feel like politics can feel like that, deciding which gun you want to be shot with. But I guess if you have to choose the pea shooter. If the choice between getting shot with the pea desert,
I have another you know, analogy. Is it might be a little too disgusting
all right
for this, but it's kind of like this, right? it's like this, right? In American politics, you're always, you're getting, at the end of the day, we're all getting fucked, right? So it's like, how do you want to get fucked? Do you want, the Diddy lube, or do you want like spit in the hand? Some people prefer to spit in the hand. Some people prefer to lube. I prefer not to get fucked at all, but it's so.
I guess if it's gonna happen, I mean, yeah, whichever smoothest and least painful.
Yeah, whatever's the least at this point. It's whatever.
Speaking of AI, sorry, what was that?
I hope that makes sense.
Oh, indeed, it does. But speaking of AI though, like AI of course is a big thing now. For a lot of different reasons. A1, yeah, of course, my bad. A1 is a big thing now. And in a lot of different uses. I use various AI services myself, so I'm not against AI, but in recent news, there's been Timbaland talking about AI artists. So like, I mean, as someone who also does music journalism, like what's your thoughts on AI becoming or potentially becoming mainstream music?
So what I will say is that okay, so it's like multi-layered, right? So it's multi-layered. So the reality is that post streaming, and then the, I guess, inexpensive equipment. If we treat music as like a tangible physical product that has, let's just say, that has a value, we all know that the more something is widely available, the less valuable it becomes. So right now, the value of music is relatively low. That's why, you got to get like 1,000 streams or 2,000 streams just to make like $1, right? Whether you're talking, streaming on DSPs, digital service providers, right? Like Apple, Spotify, Tidal, right? So if it costs, if it only costs $100, let's say $200, right, to get a mic, some software, maybe a tablet, your phone, right? You look at somebody like the guy from the internet that made Bad Habits, the song Bad Habits, Lacey, I think Steve Lacey, Bad Habits. Steve Lacey. So he made that song on his Steve Lacey. Am I saying that right? Yeah, am I saying that?
You probably are, but I don't know if I've heard of him.
Yeah, Steve Lacey. So he has a song called Bad Habits. So you look at somebody like Steve Lacey, he made that song on his iPhone. You look at Billie Eilish, she made her, both her albums, and at her, she made her the big album, What We Do When We Go to Sleep, whatever. I forgot the name of the album. She made that from her brother's bedroom at her parents' house. So we've reached a point to where music is incredibly cheap to make, and it's just as inexpensive to distribute and have a wide amount of people listen to it, right? So what's next after that, right? Because it's capitalism. So how do we take that and cheapen that process even further? And that's where AI comes in. So I'm split with AI because I think people use AI like this big boogeyman that's here to take everybody's jobs and all that other stuff. And I believe that there are ethical ways to use AI and unethical ways of AI, right? So an ethical way of AI would be, hey, I'm a musician. I don't have a lot of money to mix and master these recordings. Maybe I can do like a quick, somewhat decent way of mixing and mastering through AI. At the very least, keep levels. Even though somebody that professionally mixes and masters, they do a whole lot more to a song. But if I just want to make sure the levels are straight as best as they can be, and maybe add some spatial audio if you want to go that far, you can use AI for that. I think that stockpiling, artists who are trying to get on, like what Timbaland did, you ask for all these inquiries for music, you build this catalog, and then you use it for AI. I think that's kind of messed up because what you're pretty much doing is trying to replicate somebody else's sound, which isn't fair. That's not fair at all. So when it comes to creating art, like it's a difference between, I guess it's kind of hard to, we have our distance and barriers, but it's kind of like, the difference between a good street taco and then something from Taco Bell.
Okay, yeah.
Something that,
maybe not tacos specifically, but I get what you mean. Like, if we're talking but yeah, I get you. Yeah. Certain places, different food. Yeah.
Like, what your mama's chicken tastes like and how good it is compared to Nando.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
you know what that love and passion and commitment and, and intention that goes in making a good plate of food at the mom and pop shop chicken spot, that might look a little rundown, but the food is like you wouldn't trade it for anything in the world compared to like Nando's that has a formula, that has an algorithm, that has everything is like like an equation.
Yeah.
So I think, using Timbaland, for example, Timbaland has always stretched the boundaries. And I think we have to also go there. Timbaland has always stretched the boundaries and what music can be and do. Like, he's always done that. Whether you're talking about what he did with Missy, whether you're talking about, what he did for Aaliyah, how he kind of fused hip hop and R&B the way he did. Or whether his other thing projects, like, how he fused, without Timbaland, we don't even get hip hop, like kind of modern country rap stuff that started with Bubba Sparks' Deliverance album, which is one of my favorite rap albums, like, ever. It's like one of the Bubba Sparks' Deliverance is one of the wildest produced albums that really stands up to the test of time, in my opinion. Just sonically. It's literally, he mixed bluegrass with Timbaland, like, drums. It's crazy. And then on top of that, he's working with Bjork, who's also in her own way has stretched the possibilities of music as well. I mean, I remember, watching her live, and she had, for Hidden Place, she had a dude shuffling cards to the music. Like, it was the craziest, like shuffling cards, and it just like it was perfect, right? All right, the Medela album, which is one of my favorite Bjork albums, where she, it's nothing but human acapella voices, and but like different ranges and frequencies to actually sound like a cohesive, piece of work. So I think people are looking to always, technology and music are always going to go hand in hand in how they kind of stretch how things sound and how the process of how things sounds work. So I think that this is, using AI is only it's an inevitable thing. But I will say the way that Timbaland is going about it is definitely inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people might agree with that, and then I think I myself would agree with that as well. In terms of, like, like I say, there's various things that I use AI for because I do find it useful as a tool.
Yeah.
But to me, I think that's how it is. It's a tool. It's something. It's like I have a hammer because I need to hammer a nail. Like, so
Yeah.
it's a tool. There's something I need to do. If I had the money to pay a human to do it, I know a human could do it better, but if I don't, I can use AI and it could do it, pretty good, good enough to be published, but I know it's not going to be as good as, say, a person can do, but it's going to be, good enough, right? And I can use it for things like that. And I think there's that line where,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, and I was going to say, I think there was that line where I think sometimes people kind of look at something and say, oh, it's good enough, and then think that, okay, I don't need to go any further than that. It was like, well, actually, it's just good enough. A person could always do so much more.
And then I think the good thing that I think not enough people are talking about is the difference between, especially now, going back to what I said earlier about this like easy accessibility for music. I think AI is really going to be the separator between real musicians and real recording artists and real performers, because AI cannot replicate a performance. It can't. Going to a jazz club and seeing an improvised jazz set cannot be replicated by AI. It can't. It can't. Going to a cipher and hearing real MCs rap cannot be replaced by AI. It just can't. The feeling, the eyes, the way that it can't. The emotion, it can't. Watching somebody like AI cannot replicate Kendrick or Beyonce, the greats. Like, they just can't. AI can't do that. At least right now. What the future says, 10, 20 years from now, I don't know. Look, I'm just speaking in the present, but I don't think it can replace that. And honestly, performance is really what separates real artistry anyway from, somebody that just, raps over an AI beat with some AI lyrics and then records a song. Even if the song becomes a viral hit on TikTok or runs the charts, it's still not going to replace that tangible feeling of going to an arena, a stadium, a venue, that's 100 capacity or 500 capacity. It's never going to replace it. It's never going to replace the feeling of going to a house party and hearing a good DJ set. It's
Mm.
never gonna replace that feeling. Like AI is just not gonna replace it. Like AI is really good. Like if you want to do some social media content and you don't feel like paying for licensed music and you just need something in the background that fits the vibe, go by all means. Like
yeah,
I think that makes sense. You know, if you are a filmmaker and you don't have the money to get somebody to make a score and you just need some background music, just some generic background music to heighten the mood for the scene, by all means do it. But again, there's a difference between, again, that home cook,
yeah,
that from scratch cook, and then it's a difference between, like I said, I'm an Inglewood dude. You know, my favorite burger joint is Fresh and Meaty. It's a hood joint. It's a hood burger joint. I've been having this burger since I was like 10 years old. I still eat it like I am 10 years old. Less of it because I got real nigga health issues, you know, hypertension, blood pressure, cholesterol, you know, all of that, you know.
Moderation.
Yeah, in moderation, right? But it's not gonna give, like, McDonald's is not gonna give me that feeling, even if more people have eaten, you know, McDonald's more than Fresh and Meaty. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to, you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, it's not going to replace that feeling of, like, you know, real. Like human emotion, human intuition, human emotion is a real thing. You know, it's a real thing. There's like guts that we have, you know, and I think that's really important. But I think that AI, going back to what I was saying, I definitely think that AI is really a good tool. Just like the gun, you know, gun is really good at making hunting more efficient, you know, hunt animals for food, you know, or you hunt people.
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing? You know, it's about what are you doing and what's the end goal for this? You know, are you trying to make life more efficient? Or are you just trying to make it harder for people to make a living? So that's what I look at.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way of looking, actually. And I actually like the analogy as well about, you know, the food as well. But let me try and think of one that's a little bit more bougie, because I'm kind of bougie these days.
Go ahead.
So not too bougie, but a little bit. The difference between going to like a fuel station, a service station, and getting coffee out of a machine, and going to a local artisan coffee shop, you know, and getting a coffee there. Like it's the difference between.
Yeah.
It's not just, I mean, sure, you got the machine's going to be fine. It's not going to be bad coffee. It's not terrible. No. It's fine. No. It tastes like coffee. It tastes good. It's not a problem.
It's hyper processed. You know, you just press a button and the coffee comes out. You just press a button. You know, depending on where you go, you press a button. They're gonna add sugar in it, cream in it. You just press the button and you get exactly how you want. It's super quick. It takes 5 seconds as opposed to
convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient. You know, sometimes cheaper.
Yeah.
You know. But when you go to the artisanal coffee shop where you see them grind the beans up that they've had imported from somewhere in Colombia or somewhere in Africa, you know, they are grinding this stuff sometimes by hand. They packing it in the spot, putting it in a thing, making the stuff, and then they're taking milk from a cow that came from a farm and they're foaming it up.
Yeah.
You know,
and they're pouring the milk carefully, doing the art as well. Give it a cup that's got the flour in it, you know?
Yeah, all of that. It's a feeling. You feel special. Like,
right.
You know, you feel kind of special, you know, when you do that. So, yeah, I think that I think those feelings are always going to be precedent. You know, they're always, at least, you know, your average human is going to want those feelings of being catered to, right? Because that's a human emotion, right? We want to feel special. AI doesn't care. AI literally just is a set of prompts. It just does what it's told.
Right. You know, and that's it, isn't it? Like it's and I guess that's the appeal of it in terms of like, say, a record label. They could have, say, an artist that does what it's told, that, you know, doesn't have any queries, doesn't have any issues, doesn't have any complaints, doesn't have any need for anything. It just does what it's told when it's told to do it, and it produces, you know, what it's told to produce. And then for me, I'll think about like, okay, so where is the art, right? Is the art now in the prompt? But then if that's the case, and this is maybe me just getting a little bit too kind of into it, because I think about, you know, I have creativity in terms, you know, creative background in terms of like my poetry that I used to do, occasionally still do. But like, you know, where is the actual art? So like, is the art in the prompt? How creative can you get in the prompt? And I guess there's an argument to be made there. But here's the thing that I think about is that as a listener of music, I don't hear the prompt. You know, I hear what's created. And as such, it's like, I have a connect, or supposedly have a connection to what's created. And if the creation is based on taking things that already exist and fundamentally creating something that's in the end generic, regardless of the prompt, is going to be, feelings that have been done before, sounds that have been done before, things that have been done
Yeah.
before, and nothing truly, really new and innovative. It's just kind of mix and mashing things. It's kind of like, when I was in school, when we used to read plays, like the Shakespeare plays, and it's like, okay, this is cool reading a play, but at the same time, it's like that's not where the art is. The art is in the performance, when you actually go to see the final product, and then you have people who bring their experience to that play, whether through their acting, through the way it's directed. And each time you go to see that play with, say, a different cast and a different director, it's going to be the same scripts, but you're getting something completely different out of it. And I feel like with AI prompts, that's just not there. Sure, you can get creative in the prompt, but in the end of the day, I don't see the prompt. I just see the generic thing that the prompt creates.
I think what you just touched on, I think you touched on multiple things, right? So even if you're using the theater analogy, right? People don't go to theater like that. In fact, theater is kind of like the luxury form of, media now. Everybody wants to.
I'm bougie.
We went from theater. Think about it. We went from theater to film to television to streaming. So it's one of those things where now I know Denzel Washington this year did Othello, and tickets were $600 for nosebleed. They started at $600. This is see Denzel Washington do Othello, right? So I think part of it is that you look at labels. First off, labels aren't really doing artist development like that. It's only a few of them. You got boutique labels like TDE who have who from the ground up will take a Doechii or a Kendrick or a Sir or Schoolboy Q. They'll mold them from the bottom mid level to a higher level and then do a distribution deal with a major. But most of the time labels are going. Think about it. Labels for the past 10 years have been finding people based off of TikTok.
The new scout manager.
Yeah. They've been finding people off of TikTok. So that goes back to what I said earlier about accessibility. I think that you have people that can just set up some stuff quick, do some stuff, and then you have some people that spend years learning the piano, decades learning the piano. They spend decades learning the flute. They spend decades learning how to play drums. They spend decades, trying to, know the difference between a D minor scale or something like that, and a B flat. There are people that study this for real, right? So I think on the flip hand, we spend a lot of time talking about the creative, but also the way people listen to music, right? So physical media, I wouldn't say the death because people are still buying vinyls, but I think when you look at physical media, and that transition between people using cassette tape players, 8-track vinyls, all of that stuff, I would think what it's also done is that it's made, especially in a streaming generation, it's made music listeners really lazy. It's made them really lazy.
I think that's true. I think I could. Yeah,
it's made music listeners really lazy. That's why music got bad after 2000. No, music is still great. There's still great musicians out there. There's still really incredible music. But if you let radio tell you what to listen to, and radio, especially the big conglomerates like iHeart, they're just pretty much doing algorithmic playlists that are based off of other algorithmic playlists that are based off of other algorithmic playlists. And that's how you have this synergy where it kind of feels like everybody's listening to the same thing, the same slop, when the reality is that use that that X button or dislike button on your Apple Music if you don't like that song instead of skipping. That'll make your algorithm a lot better. You have to people won't even do that. You know what I mean? People won't, also the reality is that people won't, also because, people have a tendency to follow trends, especially now in music. So it's I'll still go to, I didn't seen the best. I didn't seen the Kendricks, at the biggest stadiums, at the biggest venues, at the biggest arenas. But I also don't mind going up the street to see somebody in a 50-person, 100-person venue because I love music. In that sense, I have an appreciation for the art form. I have an appreciation for what it takes to make that type of art. So that doesn't necessarily bother me, but some people be like, you going there? You know what I'm saying? That's because they don't really love music, because music has become so cheapened to where it's something that's a very passive experience. There was a time where, and I know you probably do it too, to where, we'd get a CD, we'd spend that $20 to get a CD, we sit down with this, we play the CD, and then we'd read the booklet for hours. We'd read it for hours. Kids aren't doing that anymore. This generation, the Gen Alphas, The Gen Alphas and like even a lot of millennials, they're not doing that anymore because they don't have an appreciation for the music. They don't have an appreciation for the art and the time and the blood, sweat, and tears. Also, like for example, like I've been in a recording studio. I've been in several recording studios where I've seen like one song take like a whole day to make before it comes to hit. Like I've seen that. Like people don't see that mundane aspect of real musicianship. People just buy a beat off of BeatStars, buy some AI stuff, get the recorder, get Logic, or and they just go to work. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's one of those things to where I think it's just like cooking, right? It's literally just like cooking. You have people who cook from scratch. And you got people that need Blue Apron. You have Blue Apron in UK? Blue Apron. It's like a meal service where they like send it like a package.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think we have that specifically, but yeah, there are things like that, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, I'm assuming. Yeah, so there's a difference between cooking stuff from scratch, than the time that it takes to learn, how to do it right. Because your background is I know you, but your parents are like
Nigerian.
Nigerian. Okay,
yeah.
So so it's a difference between I don't know if you can do it, but like the process of making.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With the little hammer and the what you call it, where it feels like they do that for hours. Like the pounding.
Yeah, pounding. Yeah.
Like that's real work. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a real passion for that. I don't know if you can do that, and I'm assuming it probably won't taste as good.
I've not tried making that. I mean, I will say in terms of cooking, let me not undersell myself too much. I'm not like amazing, but I'm not terrible. I feel like there's certain things I feel like I could do really well. Jollof rice, I think I can do pretty well. Yeah. That's something that I've practiced, and over a period of time, and kind of feel like I've gotten that down to like, yeah.
Yeah. One of those things where it's a difference between that. So I think part of, but I also think that we're just lazy in general. Like I think that the art, like we because I think the problem is that for the longest, art was always seen as something for rich people, and it didn't matter if you didn't make money. It didn't matter if you. I mean, it didn't matter unless you made money. It didn't matter if you didn't make money and stuff. I think that I think now because anybody can make music, that's kind of like killed some of the exclusivity, but it's also democratized it. Like, what I mean? Democratized it a lot. Because there are a lot of artists that I like that wouldn't have a chance on a major label just because of how that structure works. So I think we also have to give kudos to that, especially a lot of people that are really doing it on the indie side. Not only are they doing it on the indie side, but they're able to take care of themselves, take care of their families, also have a nice peace of mind, knowing that they ain't got to do no extra stuff to get people's attention. People just like the music for them. They might not be a Drake level or a Kendrick level or a Beyonce level or a Hove level, but they're fine where they're at. I got a homie, during the school year, he makes music and he teaches a high school class. And over summer, he goes touring around the nation. He does usually about 30, 40 dates over summer. And that's because of the internet. You know what I mean? And you get those type of stories where he's able to take care of his family, do X, Y, Z. And that's, there's plenty of stories like that now because of the internet. So I think, and that goes back to what I was saying. I was like, there is really a lot of good music that I listen to that maybe nobody else would care about. But at the end of the day, I'm a very selfish listener. So I only like what I like. I don't let other people determine what I like and what I listen to. You either enter my world, because I know everything that's going. Like you can know what's all you got to do is look at Rap Caviar on Spotify to see what's popping on the rap side. All you got to do is look at the top 10, Billboard charts to see what everybody else is. But what makes you an individual in your taste? What differentiates your taste? And that's what I'm like. That's where again, that's human. That's where the human aspect comes from. Like what makes up your taste? Especially as you get older, how's your taste refined?
That's an interesting way to look at it.
And that's why I look at it. Yeah. Everybody should be selfish when it comes to that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit of the opposite of that in a sense that, I mean, there's things that I like for sure. And I think, like, say during the 90s, I listened to a lot of heavy metal during the 90s. And I still to this day, I listen to heavy metal. But even during the 90s, I listened to other musics, but heavy metal was kind of like my main one for a good period of time with that, right?
You got things that you really enjoy and then other stuff that kind of takes a backseat.
Yeah. And to now, it's like, you know, I still listen to metal, but I do find like I listen to a lot more other stuff. Like, and I might go through periods where I might listen to more hip hop, or I might listen to more grime, or I might listen to more like pop music. Or recently I've been listening to just the stuff from the 90s, just because I've been kind of an old school kind of kick in recent times. But yeah, I felt like over the last, I probably say like 10, 15 years or so, I feel like I've purposefully opened up, you know, what I listen to more, you know, rather than closing it. So yeah.
I'm going to say something else. So I'm also going to say that now, because of the internet, we're also more of a global society as well, right? So because we're more global, I think regional sounds took a backseat, even though I think regional sounds are coming back. But I look at even like, you know, my taste in television. So like, because of the internet, I did not know, like, and I feel like way out of place, because one of my favorite series, you know, is Spaced.
Oh yeah, I remember that show.
Yeah, one of my favorite series of all time is Spaced. But because of Amazon, I did not know about that show, Desmond's.
Oh yeah.
Like, Desmond's is one of the greatest sitcoms
Yeah.
of all time, right?
Hey, that was, we're talking old school British comedy with Desmond's.
But
Like,
but again, Desmond's was like early 90s.
it would have been, probably
Like
like
late
80s, 90s, give or take, right about that time.
Late 80s, early 90s, right? So you had, like I said, like you had a British show about, you know, a black immigrant who owns a barbershop.
Yeah.
That was, you know, that totally missed the United States, because I feel like that would have been a huge hit in the United States, especially with black folks. We would have messed with that heavy, right? But like, we were separated. Like, our art tastes were separated. So like, your average person that lives in the United States had a whole different taste than somebody in the UK. Now it's flipped. Now it's like, we all got the same taste because we all listen to the same DSP providers. We all got Netflix accounts. We all got Apple, Spotify, Tidal. We all look at stuff at the same time. We all got the same gaming taste. We all got, so it's one of those things to where I think the internet has kind of like led to that like new world order type of situation, to where we're all doing the same thing in a sense.
Yeah.
But,
I get that. Yeah.
That's what makes regional stuff a lot more important, in my opinion. Like, that's why, like, that's why I like regional stuff. That's why I'm more into like regional scenes as opposed to what everybody else listens to. Because when everybody else is listening to it, everybody listens to the same stuff. Like, we're like the world. Like, I think Kendrick going on his world tour. Like, everybody like not like us. Like, everybody likes it. Like, unless you're a Drake fan, because I got a couple of Drake fans that over that. Like, I got a couple of Drake fans, but everybody likes not like us. Everybody likes like, yo, Kendrick just did 2 sold out shows in Toronto with Drake's
madness, the disrespect from his own.
Like, that's like but the point I'm trying to make is like, everybody, like, you know what I mean? So I think everybody's becoming a lot more uniform, which is where, in my opinion, it's a difference between somebody who's a casual listener of music, who's a casual film. It's a difference between somebody who's a casual music listener as opposed to who's an enthusiast who loves music, who has a love. The difference between somebody who's a casual, you know, film, somebody who casually likes film, than a cinephile. Like, it's a difference between somebody that just, you know, goes to the store and buys a pair of headphones and somebody who considers himself an audiophile. You know, there's a difference between somebody who, everybody and their mama's a gamer now. Everybody's a gamer. Everybody's a gamer. Like, this ain't, you know, the early 2000s, 90s, where it was like people who like video games had a specific look or a specific stereotype about them. Had a card. Like, now everybody's a gamer. Everybody's a gamer. Everybody. My daughter, she's not a gamer, but she loves Roblox.
No, I see that. My mom plays them mobile games. Yeah,
exactly. Some mobile games. She's playing some slots, some Monopoly Go or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's a gamer. So there's a difference between the casual gamer and then somebody like me and you, who remember, you know, waiting in line for hours to play Grand Theft. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's a different feeling. It's a different culture. It's all of that. So I think, I think that kind of placates into a lot of that has to do with digital distribution, has a lot to do with, globalization. Globalization is a real thing. It can be scary sometimes. But I think, like I said, now it's like, I feel bad. Cause like I said, I've just started maybe like a month ago, I just started binging like Desmond's. And I was like, and now I feel like, why the fuck did I miss this show? Like, how? It's a great show. It is a phenomenal show. Like, I feel like it's one, I feel like there's I feel like this is one of those shows like BET should have just had constant reruns of, But again, I found Space first. You know what I mean? Like, even though space is a lot more relatable to me in a sense. And then, I love, Simon Pegg and all of those, I fucking love, Shaun of the Dead and, World's End and, Hot Fuzz and all that other stuff. But, the white stuff is going to make it.
Yeah, it's kind of how it goes, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah, that's just how I go. The white
back
stuff.
The pond first. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of gonna make, what I mean? The white stuff gonna always go, But I'm glad because of something like Amazon, I can find something like Desmond and be like, yes, a clever, smart, funny show about Black people.
Yeah, it was a good. It was popular as well back in the day. I remember because it was like 80s, 90s. It would have been on. I think it ended in the early 90s, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Maybe like 92. I might have to look it up, but yeah, it was a popular show. I remember, we'd watch it, go to school, talk about it, repeat the jokes, all of that, and. Yeah, Desmond's was a classic. But yeah, no, they actually did a spin-off show to Desmond's called Pork Pie. So, one of the characters, Pork Pie, like Desmond's friend in the show.
Yes.
So after Desmond, No One Beats Him, he passed away, and that's when the show ended. They did. I decided to give the bad news. Sorry. But yeah, he passed away. Then sort of the show ended after he passed when he passed. But then they did a spin-off show with Pork Pie, called Pork Pie. I don't think it ran very long though. I think it maybe like a few seasons. I don't remember. But it was a pretty good show still though. It was a pretty good show still. It was still funny, all that. Basically the premise of that one was that because they were poor and things like that. So what they did is that with Pork Pie, he won the lottery. And he becomes rich all of a sudden, and it's kind of his life after Desmond's. And it has some of the old characters, old cast coming back, but it was mostly Pork Pie and new members of new cast members. But yeah, if they've got Pork Pie, that could be another one to check out once you're done with Desmond's.
Got you. I'm gonna definitely check that out. But yeah, but that's like power of the internet, right? It's power of the internet. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that going back to what I was saying, I think that that's just like the kind of nature of the world in regards to like how people consume media. How people consume. It's definitely it's a thing that's made people it's made people lazy in how they consume their media and less intentional. Definitely a lot less intentional. A lot less intentional, which could lead to kind of like preconceived notions of like, oh, TV is like this now. We haven't had a good television show here. We don't have good music anymore. We don't have good films anymore. I was like, it's great films out there, but if y'all keep going just to see the Marvel stuff and the DC stuff, and
everything's the same. Yeah,
everything's the same. Thank God. We have Sinners.
Sinners was great. That was a great movie.
Yes, we have Sinners. Thank God we got films like that. Oh, by the way, I cannot one me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So me and her have the same tennis coach. It is awesome.
Oh really? Awesome.
Yeah. In Inglewood, out here in Inglewood. Yeah, she bad too in person. She bad in person.
Oh, that is so.
Yeah,
so she get even in her next movie. Have you popping up somewhere, playing tennis in the background or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, she definitely a baddie. But it's the fact that like, we need like, and again, every film doesn't have to be a Sinners level movie because everybody's not gonna be a riot cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's so many great films out there that kind of like avoid the typical like people just ignore it almost, they have a tendency to ignore stuff, so because I'm the type of person to watch all the Oscar nominated movies. I'm the type to watch all of them. So it's one of the things to where, whether, it doesn't matter what the budget or how many, I like film. I have an appreciation for film. I have appreciation for the process of making film. Like it's a real tedious process. It's a real hard process when you're making like film, and sometimes I like the hood ratchet 2B films too. But again, that's just I have an appreciation of art. And I think that art appreciation is a problem in modern society, in modern global society. I think real art appreciation is a very difficult thing because we're just not in a society to where we are, whether it's education, whether it's the educational system, I think that it's just a situation where it's very, I think it's education. I think, the availability kind of destroys appreciation for art because everybody's kind of chasing the same thing. Everybody's looking at the same thing, and that we're not really able to have like art that kind of like hits people because it's kind of reaching for like a wide net because everybody's trying to make all this money. Same thing with gaming. You've seen it. You look at, the popularity of Fortnite, you look at the popularity of Roblox, you look at the controversy. I don't know if you read that. I think it was Business Week, one of those outlets, about what happened with Dragon Age Velgard, how EA wanted it to be like a live service game, like to compete against Fortnite, and then they changed the single player, and then they tried to add stuff to make it lighter like Fortnite because they were trying to get as many people to look at it as possible.
Yeah.
Instead of just making a cool game. My favorite
Yeah.
game I've had, one of my favorite games that I've been playing a lot is Balatro. I like Balatro. It's a simple poker game, except it's roguelike, and I'm assuming that budget for that game was probably like a couple $100,000, no less.
What's it called?
And I
Velatro.
played Balatro, yeah. It's awesome. Balatro is awesome.
Trying to find, is that Votch as in V? Like V. Oh, wait,
BAL.
Balatro, I got it. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Balatro.
Yeah. I see. I got it. Balatro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that kind of helps us a good segue into the Summer Games Fest, I think, then, because I guess there's a lot of
Summer
games.
Games Fest was lit.
Summer Games a lot of games were talked about and announced, and of course, leading up to those announcements, we've had some news about games being more expensive now, consoles being the price of consoles due to tariffs and stuff like that more expensive now. So how are you feeling about the future after being at the Summer Games Fest and seeing all the future announcement, being hands on there and playing some of the games? How are you feeling about, say, the future of games in terms of, like, we talked about how people don't always appreciate art as much. It's kind of cheap, and I guess people have always for many years have cheapened art in some way or fashion. It's just maybe more so in the last few years, it feels like. But how do you feel about that, with games now being more expensive and all these games coming out? Some of them are going to be amazing, some of them going to be okay. But what's your kind of general kind of view of gaming going forward?
I think gaming's in an interesting spot now. I think that first of all, going back to what I said earlier, everybody's a gamer, right? Everybody's a gamer. I think everybody's a gamer, and I think it's about placating to people who fit different gaming pockets. And an example was, like I said, I did the interview with the chief executive technology officer for IO Interactive, the Hitman game, and 007, and they're making their Glacier engine scalable from iOS all the way up to PlayStation Pro.
Okay.
So that engine is scalable, really scalable, just like Unity is, Unreal. And that lets you know where gaming is, right? So you have some people that want to play Hitman on their phone, and you want somebody that wants a traditional console experience. And then for those who want to take it farther in a PC realm, depending on how powerful your rig is, you want to play it in the best, most visually audio, playable way ever, which is PC, right? PC is like the upper luxury, portion of gaming, right? And I think that's further, I think, that's where the gaming industry is. So it's like, where does that fit, right? So do people want to play, a game like Balatro, which is a $10 game that won all these indie game of the years last year at the, Video Game Awards. It's featured on Black Mirror, a couple of Black Mirror episodes. I play it on my phone. It's definitely kept me on the toilet longer. Yeah. And something to keep past the time. Like, it's my favorite mobile game. But I can also buy it on Switch. I can also buy it on PlayStation at the same time. I can buy it on PC if I want to. So that's something to think about, think about in that context as well. And I think that, the $80 games are going to be the $80 game. Let's just hope they're worth the $80, make sure that the value matches, and then you're also gonna have, the $40 games, as well. I think this year a great example of those type of games, like South of Midnight, that I covered a review. I think that game was like $40. It's a cool 10-hour adventure, very linear. The style of it's great, the soundtrack is phenomenal. You got cheaper games, and so I think there are, the big budget. You're always gonna have film. You're always gonna have the big budget Marvel stuff. And then you're gonna have the indie stuff. You're gonna have but I think that was all represented at Summer Game Fest for sure. You had the big budget, VR game from Meta. I covered the Deadpool game. That was pretty phenomenal. Probably the closest we're getting to like a Devil May Cry in VR in regards to how it plays and how it feels and how it works. Really good. I had a great time with that. You got more indie joints like Spine, which I really loved playing. Spine was really great. Really cool take on the Marvel Spider-Man, Batman kind of, rhythmic fighting style, but in the vein of like John Wick with the gun fu. I also play, you have existing licenses like, Sonic, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which is pretty much a really cool alternative to Mario Kart World, because if you ain't got that $80, you don't have a Switch 2, that's a pretty good alternative to a really good Jillian racing game. And then you have, other stuff. Blumhouse Games has some really cool stuff. I got to try one of their games. One of them is called Grave Seasons, which is a murder mystery meets a farming sim, which is really good. Yeah, it's a murder mystery meeting. I played smaller games like that. I played the Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which is really good. It's like a beat 'em up, kind of like a beat 'em up. It's made by the same developers who did Splinter's Revenge. I don't know if you got a chance to play that. And so those games exist. And then you got the bigger games like the Crimson Deserts from, Pearl Abyss, big, because now you're having the rise of China and South Korea in game, especially like Shift Up with Stellar Blade. So I got to play those. Like I said, I played a couple of VR games, which are great. And then you have, other kind of like returning, IPs. Like I'm a big Luminous fan. I don't know if you ever played Luminous, the original. Yeah, I've bought Luminous for I've bought Luminous for like 4 or 5 consoles. So I'm a huge fan of Luminous, and the soundtrack is just as fucking lit. And like I said, they have, there's so much stuff. It's so much stuff. Yeah, it's so much stuff. You look at the announcement, Capcom is having a wonderful decade. They're having a phenomenal decade. I mean, last year, Path of the Goddess, the Street Fighter, Street Fighter DLC, and Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter Wilds ended up being the top 5 selling game this year for sure. So this year they're shifting up for next year, whether they were talking Onimusha, which I'm super excited for Onimusha. I hope they do a remaster of Demon Siege, which is my favorite. You have that. You have they made the big announcement for Resident Evil 9.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool to see a host, nuclear bomb Raccoon City, which I think a lot of fans, people who are a fan of the lore of the series is really excited about, to like revisit Raccoon City after the events of 3. So yeah, it was, and then clearly, Microsoft side, I think the Microsoft showcase was kind of blah, but I mean, Call of Duty 7, another year, another Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Another year, another Call of Duty. So I don't know
they keep making them. People keep playing them. So
people keep buying them. People keep buying them. People keep buying them. So it's EA was kind of missing this year. EA was missing kind of this year. It was kind of missing this year. One of the best games that I played, I can BS you now. One of the best games I played was from Annapurna. Annapurna has a game division. They're about to release this game called Mixtape, which in my opinion,
I saw that.
I got to play that. Oh yeah, that has to be. If they're the game that I feel is going to unite kind of different sections of gaming, Mixtape is it. Yeah, Mixtape is it. Mixtape is it. I really like Mixtape. I like Mixtape a lot, actually.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool when I was watching the sort of clips from the show. And let me just get up on my screen real quick. So yeah, it was like their last night together was 3 friends embark on one final adventure, play through a mixtape of memories. Set to a soundtrack of a generation. I think it was set. Yeah. They said it was set in the 90s or the 80s. I can't remember.
Yeah, but set in the 90s.
Set in the 90s. But yeah, it just looked really cool and really interesting. When I was watching the clip. So that could be a big hit.
Really, it's the demo that I played was like there's a part where you do a playable first kiss and the right analog stick and the left analog control each tongue. And it's hilarious. Okay. That's like the best way I can explain it. There's another part where like it's like a highway chase where like your drunk friend is inside of a shopping cart and you're pushing down the hill at the cops and the helicopters. It is hilarious. Great. And then like just the setup for the booth for Annapurna, it looks like somebody's like Midwest mom's like basement. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But again, that's how gaming is this year. You have the cool stuff. You had like one of my favorite kind of releases this year. It's probably Split Fiction. And that's like you have to play that in co-op. Like there's no way out of that. You play it in co-op. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. There's definitely a lot of cool stuff in gaming. I think we have a tendency to focus on like the big tentpole stuff, and like I said, it's a lot of cool indie stuff, a lot of cool mid-tier stuff. It's a lot of different styles, genres that are all represented that I think are good. That I think that's something for everybody. So one thing I will say is that kind of like there is no core idea of what a gamer is anymore.
Yeah. That's kind of been like that for a while. I think in fact I remember like it's probably going back to, if you remember, was it Gamergate and Zion and was it Feminist Frequency, and when that was all popping, the whole thing about the gamer is dead, that kind of thing. And maybe that wasn't the best way to describe it. Kind of kicked off.
I think nobody was saying a quiet part out loud, like the typical white 18-year-old idea of what a gamer. I think that's dead for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean the traditional, or let me say traditional, but I guess the typical idea of a gamer that a lot of people had in mind, in particular a lot of non-gamers might have in mind, because lots of different people always played games. It's always been like that. But I guess for people who, when they say the mainstream looking in, the idea of a gamer, of, the guy in a basement, sitting in his 2-week-old unwashed body, what I mean? The 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was like, we're in this generation to where, you look at somebody like Megan Thee Stallion, she's an anime nerd.
Yeah.
She's an anime nerd. Yeah, big one, a huge one. You know what I mean? You look at, I remember Offset. I saw Offset at a release party for Diablo 4.
Okay, Offset. Okay, yeah. Diablo was okay. Yeah.
Diablo 4. And you would never
that's deep geek territory as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. That's Diablo. Once you get into Diablo, like there's a level to this shit, right? So I think like part of it is that, like I said, it's so many different types of ideas of what a gamer is. It's so many different ideas.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean that traditional or that typical image, I say that was definitely gone. In fact, that was probably gone before that announcement was made. But the game, and
you look at leagues like FaZe Clan,
FaZe Clan. Oh yeah.
FaZe Clan and 100 Thieves. I think FaZe Clan was backed by like Drake and Snoop Dogg, and then you look at 100 Thieves, that was kind of backed by Ye in a sense. And then even Snoop, Death Row. You have Death Row Films. You have Death Row the label, and then they have Death Row Games where they make Fortnite experiences now. So you got Snoop getting his hand in game too with his son. So it's one of those things where I think gaming is more mainstream than it's ever been.
For sure, yeah.
And I think there are things like when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, everybody's getting it. Everybody's getting it. I think I'm calling off of work for a couple of days. But I think
it comes out
sometime next year. Sometime soon, I don't know.
Oh, so what game did you say? Sorry,
right.
Yeah, all right, cool. But no, for sure. I think a lot of people calling in sick, taking off work. If you're not getting a holiday, you're just not coming into work that day for sure.
Yeah,
for a good week at least.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. Something to think about. I think that's just where gaming is. Everybody's a gamer. Everybody's kind of
Yeah, I mean I think Microsoft, I guess one of the things they're trying to do is trying to tap into that as well, with the whole thing about every screen is an Xbox.
Everything's Xbox. Yeah,
and I think that they got that new the Xbox Ally coming out, which
the ROG Ally.
We'll see how that does. I mean, compared to the
I don't think Microsoft has. It's just really just a reskin ROG Ally. So. It's been around for about 2 years, and it's a pretty capable machine. I've covered it for CNN. Pretty capable machine, and I think honestly, power wise, pretty much equivalent to an Xbox Series S. If you really want to take it there, it's pretty much an Xbox Series S, just portable and with a battery. So I think Microsoft is kind of on to something with their Series S in a sense. I think they were kind of on to something, but I think they were also on to something like making the Xbox Game Pass Android for Android TV, as well. Making it for Android TV, making it, just their streaming. I'll say this, it doesn't do GeForce Now, but even though they do have a partnership with GeForce Now, I think GeForce Now is like the benchmark for game streaming. But Game Pass is up there, and if I don't have...
sorry. Yeah.
And if we get to the point to where you don't have to buy consoles anymore, I think that's pretty good in making games more accessible for everybody.
For sure. I've tried GeForce Now. I've tried the streaming on Xbox as well. I've also tried the PlayStation one, the Nintendo one, and do you remember Google did one for a little bit as well? What was it called? Stadia. So yeah, I've tried a few different streaming platforms over the years. The Microsoft one, I think, does play pretty well depending on the machine. For some reason, it didn't work well on my not my current computer, but my old computer. For whatever reason, it didn't work well. Even on my Xbox One, it didn't seem to stream very well. But for whatever reason, it streamed great on my phone.
Yeah.
When I played it on my phone, it streamed great. Yeah. I was like, all right, well. But yeah, Stadia had a really good streaming platform. It's just kind of too bad. I think Google kind of messed that up and it ended up closing down.
Yeah.
But yeah, GeForce Now is probably, in my opinion, at least to be fair, I've not used these for a while, so maybe my opinion's a bit old. But at least when I was using it, GeForce Now is probably the most stable. It felt the most like you were playing on a machine natively. And it just works across different platforms with no issues, whether I was on my computer, whether I was on my phone, whether it just worked. And but yeah, I do feel like Microsoft are onto something with pushing towards that, though it doesn't seem to make sense to me that they'll have this thing like Game Pass and the streaming and then still have consoles. Like it kind of feels like you shoot yourself in the foot.
I think it's about me. I think honestly it's about meeting people where they are. I think it's about meeting people where they are. Because again, I have an Xbox. I use it for reviews and stuff, but most of the games I play on PC. Now, most people don't want to play on PC, whether it's affordability issues or maintenance and, figuring out, I need a driver. People don't feel like dealing with drivers and all the stuff, intricacies that come with PC. I think that remember Microsoft is a software company first. Yeah. I mean, people forget Sony makes VAIOS laptops. The Sony VAIOS laptops are Windows laptops. Yeah, it still makes Sony VAIOS. So if Microsoft is like, because first off, we all know the big thing happening is that when Steam comes to Xbox, that's like now it's looking like an inevitability. So now it's like, what Microsoft is doing? You remember that scene at the end of Matrix Revolution when Neo is fighting Agent Smith and he kind of repeats what he did in the first one, where he's just like, I'm just going to let you take over.
Oh yeah.
And then, it's the idea of surrendering the win. So it's one of those things where, people were buying PlayStations by the dozens. But if you look at it now, like Sony doesn't have any first party games. They realize that those first party rollouts for those $300 million games, like the Spider-Man and the God of Wars, those take forever to make. And Sony hasn't had any, like outside of like Astro Bot last year, which was pretty cool. And a few, some smaller stuff like that. They're struggling to have those like first party games kind of drop like that. Meanwhile, Microsoft is on it. They're on it. Game Pass is getting bigger and bigger, as the months go by. It's getting bigger and bigger as the months go by. So, I think now it's one of those things to where also the biggest contender that people forget is the Chinese market. Remember, China just started allowing people to play games like 5 years ago. And now that, people are playing games, China also has their own developers, and most people in China are playing on PC. We saw that last year with Black Myth Wukong. Most people in China, like first off, Black Myth Wukong sold like 1.5 million copies in like a day. And China got that 15% rule, where if you get 15% of China, somebody buying your stuff in China, you like a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? And I think most people in China were playing on PC. They're playing on PCs. And I think what's happening is that the PC components are getting cheaper. They're getting more efficient. Graphics cards are getting cheaper in a sense. You don't have, if you want to play the game, it gives you, the native 4K 60, 120 frames, you get the big 5080 graphics cards, that's cool. Or you can settle for a smaller GPU to play at 1080, play Fortnite, play Roblox, or you can play Black Myth Wukong at very low settings, as long as it plays, it looks good. So I think, like I said, right now, anybody can play games. And like I said, going back to the story about what IO Interactive, I'm saying they're making Hitman for iOS all the way to PlayStation Pro. I think that's the benchmark that, engines like Unity, especially Unity, which is popular. Unity is popular. And then Unreal for the, more big budget stuff where like you want to do The Witcher, the Gears of War series, and all of that. So I think that, whether you want to stream it as well. So I think now it's like, gaming is a lot more open. I'm like, even if you look at Microsoft and Sony with the, the accessibility controllers, you know, the accessibility. You know, I think that all our we haven't even talked about the Nintendo Switch 2, you know, which
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much
just come out recently, isn't it?
really,
So
yeah.
400 and whatever pound it's costing her.
Yeah, so that's one of those things where like people are making, you know, like gaming. Like at this point, I was like, don't be surprised if Microsoft tries to do a deal with Nintendo to put Game Pass, you know, on
It would
Switch.
make sense. I mean,
You know,
I'm not sure I see it happening. I mean, I could be wrong, of course. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. It would make sense. It actually just makes sense. Even if it's just like the Game Pass bit where you're just streaming. You know, you can only have the one where you stream the consoles, stream the games rather. You know, just something like an app on the Nintendo Switch where you know and it streams the games there, and you know, because the controls are pretty much the same layout, so it's not like you have to change much there. You know, you just have something, streams it, plays it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, whether they actually do it or not, I guess that waits to be seen. But I mean, was that could be.
Yeah. So who knows? You know, who knows? So I think that right now, you know, there's no excuse to play. You know, you have no. It used to be like, oh, I don't have the money for this. You know, I don't have the money for that. It's like, okay, all right. So you don't have the money to buy a console. You know, maybe you can stream it. You know, maybe you can buy your cheap PC. You know, you know. So I think internet speeds are getting faster and faster. You know, every year we get a new. You know, we got Wi-Fi 7 last year. You know, so it's so many things. It's so many ways to play. And that's good. The more people are playing, you want as many people. You know, that's why I'm like, Microsoft was smart for putting Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation 5. They were pretty good. They were pretty smart.
Here's something I'm going to put out there actually. Whether it's Microsoft or GeForce Now, Sony, whoever wants to do this, but I think this would be a good idea because like the Game Pass streaming option, it's a great, you know, Game Pass in general is just a great value for money. You pay, it's like over here, it's like 12, 13 pounds a month, and you get access to all the games day one. Awesome, great, right? But then I feel like because when I had it, the thing that kind of put me off it was that I don't always get a lot of time to play games. So if I pick a game and I start playing it and it takes me like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months to get through, I've basically bought the game at that point. You know what I mean? So I feel like there needs to be an option for people who don't have a lot of time. You know, if they could figure that out where you can still play the games, but like, I don't know, maybe you don't get as much access or maybe something, you know, whatever. But yeah, if they could figure that out, yeah, I'll be on board. But cool. But yeah, I think that's a good place to start winding down. We've talked about a lot of stuff today, so you know, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
No
but
problem. No problem.
Real quick before we go, was there anything else you wanted to mention or add? Any last words?
No. I think we got everything. You know, just I'm on socials. You know, my portfolio site uralg.com. I'm on Instagram.
Awesome.
I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on X. I'm on Facebook. Hit me up. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely do that, and check out the book as well. What's it called? There we go. Thinking Evil. Thinking Evil. I actually did read the book a couple of years back. 3 years ago, he mentioned it to me. So yeah, definitely check out the book. It's on Amazon. Thinking Evil by Ural Garrett. But yeah, dude, appreciate you coming through. Appreciate you taking time out your day to chat with me for a little bit about all kinds of cool stuff. So hopefully anybody watching and or listening, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. Let us know what you think of anything we talked about, any suggestions, all of that good stuff. But that's going to be it for this episode of the Uncivilized Art Podcast. So thank you. And until whenever, if ever, hey.